for themselves today against SuperMassive. But in all honesty, SuperMassive is the team that I want to talk about here. And Spawn, I'm coming to you first because we had some criticisms and some questions about this team after their first game of the day, particularly looking at the jungle and Stomaged, the fact that he was relegated to that Gragas. Here they go ahead and they stab at the Graves. Much better showing for him. Of course, it is at the expense of a Ryze and Ekko pick on the other side.
So a couple of things here. Yeah, they grabbed the Graves. That's fantastic. As you said, they did give up strong counter picks, but they also picked very heavily for lane. So I think that was actually okay because they obviously had a pick, at least fabFabulous did, in the top lane against that Ekko in the likes of a Fizz. So I think that this is much more how I expected them to play. You know, grab a farming jungler and then just play strong lane yourself and kind of allow Stomaged to just farm up, get to the mid-game spikes, and then see if you can make anything happen in the team fights.
Yeah, absolutely. So good on them there. And then, yeah, you already touched on fabFabulous. Let's hit it again, though. Stronger laning out of him than from Thaldrn prior. So perhaps the player that they'll stick with throughout the remainder of the tournament.
Yeah, I think it could still go either way, but they definitely are looking to have more games with him than they would have even seen at the IWCI. I think it's relatively promising for them overall, though. You look at how abysmal G2 looked today.
I mean, yeah.
Look how decently they looked against RNG. Like, there is some wiggle room here. And I mean, even in this game, there was a scary fight around the Baron pit that could have actually swung this game in their favor. So it looked kind of just like a standard-ish LPL game with obviously RNG being the stronger team, but not totally ruling out the fact that they'd be able to win.
And I think RNG kind of went into this game and they were like, Name's our Sivir player, so we're going to prove we can play Sivir, you know, we're going to prove we can play Tahm Kench. And I don't know whether they really proved any of these things. They kind of proved that they're strong mechanical players, and Mlxg could definitely play Lee Sin still.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine that you want to maybe show some new picks for future pick and bans, that's fine. I think it's just clear, if a team comes in and like completely disrespects SuperMassive and like picks a troll composition, there's a good chance you will actually lose the game. And that's the key thing for SuperMassive here. They're definitely not out of the tournament. Same for G2, even though they look currently like one of the weakest teams with the way they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, we heard earlier from Faker himself in that interview with Shox that he believes RNG might have the edge when it comes to snagging that second place spot in the tournament. He doesn't believe anybody's going to beat SKT, of course.
Surprise.
Yeah, big surprise. But do we feel, based on, I know, again, very early into the competition, but based on the two games that we've seen from RNG, that they're head and shoulders above the rest in terms of that race for second?
I don't think head and shoulders. I would say that I do, if I had to redo my prediction that I did, and I hadn't listened to the car salesman over on my left here,
again,
I would have said that RNG...
Make your own opinions.
Yeah, I would say that RNG, by like a whisker, like the thinnest of whiskers, I think, is currently the second best team.
The best part about all this is I trusted what Spawn told me about saying RNG was good, and I didn't trust Deficio. So I'm happy with that.
Why do you disagree?
Because I don't think RNG has really shown anything other than a extremely poor game one against CLG that was so back and forth, and honestly, might as well have been a loss. And then we've been, ooh, disappointing start for RNG, 1-1, ooh, gave up a few kills against SuperMassive, and then suddenly we won't be standing here because of one team fight.
So I do also have to say that like the first two games of the day still could have gone either way, and that influences our perception hugely. Like imagine if we would have seen...
If CLG was 2-0.
Yeah, and G2 could easily be 1-1 with Flash Wolves being 0-2. Like, these games hinged on single team fights. So it's still that incredibly close pack in the middle, but after today, G2 needs to get better because they look super sloppy and do seem
That's why I think they're the second best team, because LPL,
G2?
No, RNG.
that would be
because
weird.
LPL is the team that has the longest game time, like very, very long. They're used to scrappy fights, and they're used to one team fight deciding everything on the map at 40 minutes. Like, if you watch the LPL, lane swaps go wrong all the time, but teams somehow still crawl back in. People are stealing Barons left, right,
and center.
It's
not a good thing.
Like,
I was about to say.
The LPL now, it's all about Baron steals.
No, but it's something about just Shanghai in general, maybe, because that's where it's played. Because this tournament looks very similar to the LPL at the moment, and RNG should be able to beat you with experience there.
This is why you cannot put RNG like above any other team right now if we look at the middle pack, because we will get more games like these. We will get some games where RNG will, again, win some fights, lose some fights, and they will not win the last team fight this time around. And they will be dropping games here and there. The question for me is just with G2 and the way they've been playing right now, if they play like they do against Flash Wolves the first 25 minutes, there's hope. You know, they can bounce back. It's still a long tournament. And it's not like CLG, Flash Wolves, or RNG are looking like world-class teams. right now. Only
Yeah.
SKT can say that.
All this tells me is that the results of this tournament are very uncertain, and that excites the hell out of me.
After one day,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Surprising.
it's a 5-day group stage, double round robin, and that's even before the bracket.
We have so many more games to play. Well, after one day of competition here in Shanghai, let's take a look at how the group stage is shaping up. Korea's SKT and LPL's Royal Never Give Up are starting out at the top of the tables with a 2-0 start. CLG and Flash Wolves each have 1 win apiece, and then Europe's G2 Esports and Turkey's SuperMassive still looking to get on the board after our first day of play. Now, G2 Esports will have a chance at their first win tomorrow as MSI 2016 continues with a transatlantic clash against CLG. Then we'll see SKT take on Royal Never Give Up, followed by the Flash Wolves versus SuperMassive. So those first 2 matches of the day, again, you talk about importance here. We're going to break that 2-0 tie in terms of between SKT and RNG, but also G2, they got to turn it on now.
Yeah. I mean, everything here for G2, honestly. If they go down 0-3, losing to both Flash Wolves and CLG teams they're fighting with to avoid that number 5 spot, everything then looks wrong. And the problems they had today, so much came down to communication and honestly a solo queue mentality in many ways. I don't know if that can be fixed overnight because you don't have any time to scrim or anything between these games. You just go back to the hotel and you talk.
You get some sleep, yeah.
Yeah, these are definitely long days. I mean, 6 to 7 hours of games. A lot of these teams have to be here beforehand as well. So you could play a few games if you really wanted to, but you have to worry about burnout throughout the 5-day double round robin group stage.
And I want to see if CLG can continue the team fighting part of their game and whether Caitlyn does get taken off the board, because we've seen 2 Caitlyn picks so far for Stixxay. I'm a believer now. I think it is one of the most annoying champions to play against from what I've seen. I think that they'll continue to pull that out. RNG have a huge match ahead of them, though. Game 2, if they cannot clean up any of their early game and this scrappiness that exists, SKT will beat them in 26 minutes if they play the way they did today, because RNG have been so sloppy.
This is something we didn't get to talk about because we didn't do an intro like for SKT and obviously G2 earlier today. But both G2, the way they've been playing against Flash Wolves, and also just past, if you look at the LCS, with a lot of over-aggressive moves, like a lot of high-risk, high-reward plays that can really backfire. RNG is exactly the same. Those kind of teams do not do well against SKT because SKT relies so much on being a much smarter team than you, much better shot calling and understanding when you go for these high-risk, high-reward plays, how do we respond? Like, if you go over-aggressive without a teleport, they will come down and they will kill you, like, instantly. They do not wait. So I think RNG has a very poor, should we say, style against SKT. Yep. And they really have to outplay them early on to do anything.
And I don't want to overlook that third game of the day, Flash Wolves versus SuperMassive. And we just saw a good showing by SuperMassive, and earlier we were commenting on the fact that Flash Wolves start slow. Yeah. What they have shown to us is that they went down in a deficit both games in that first 20 minutes. So SuperMassive can secure themselves maybe a strong laning phase. There's no reason to think that they can't come out with a win in that matchup.
100%. I also think that the Flash Wolves have shown that their top laner maybe isn't of the caliber that we thought he was before this tournament. MMD, I think, still has some question marks, and fabFabulous played that last game, at least the laning phase, incredibly well. So there are holes that SuperMassive will be looking towards, thinking, you know what, we go early to 25, 30 minutes in this game, we can make a definite meal of it.
Yeah, and then we also, later in the day, turns out we have a lot of really good games at MSI.
Yeah, who would have thought?
The SuperMassive versus CLG match is really exciting, also depending on the results of the first match of the day, because these are 2 really good opportunities for SuperMassive to start picking up some wins.
Pick up a win and play spoiler in that race for the top 4. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our coverage begins tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. local time. That's 7:30 a.m. Central European Summer Time, and 10:30 p.m. on Wednesday evening for those observing Pacific Daylight Time. Until then, we need to sign off. And on behalf of everyone covering the action here at Shanghai's Oriental Sports Center, thank you for joining us to kick off the 2016 Midseason Invitational, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.